Hello, my name is Chantel O'Fallon. I'm going to talk to you about nursing and the profession, and the topic that we're going to be discussing is social media in the healthcare field. Technology has a specific use within the healthcare system. It can be used to further patient care, but it should never be used to hinder it. Nurses within the hospital aren't using paper charting anymore. They have moved to computer charting for all of their documentation needs. With this new technology comes new responsibility. As a healthcare professional, nurses must learn what is appropriate versus what is not appropriate in the workplace. A telephone, a tablet, and a laptop all have something in common. They're used every day by society. They're used for general everyday use, they're used for research, and more commonly, they are used for social media. Social media is very popular and is causing a lot of problems within the workplace. There's a time and a place for social media, but healthcare and patient care is not a place where social media should be used. If social media needs to be used to communicate with employees, then that is an acceptable form of communication, so long as there's no patient information revealed anywhere in the comments. In 2009, a student was attending the University of Louisville. She was dismissed from the nursing program after violating patient confidentiality on social media. Yoder was observing a childbirth experience for school and was required to uphold professional and ethical standards. She signed an honor pledge that she would uphold these standards in healthcare. She signed another consent form that she would abide by the patient confidentiality standards set forth according to HIPAA. This document was also signed by the mother who was delivering the baby. This consent form promised the mother that the information and experience Yoder obtained during this observation would only be shared with the nursing student and the nursing faculty member. After the clinical experience, Yoder posted a blog on her MySpace account about the clinical encounter. She never disclosed any patient information specifically, but did give specific details about the encounter and the patient's medical history. She was also making jokes at the patient's expense. Although no specific patient information was given out, there was enough information revealed in the blog that the patient was able to be identified. One of Yoder's classmates reported this information to the faculty member, and Yoder was dismissed from the program for breaking the honor code. Yoder did not agree with the nursing program's decision to release her and filed a lawsuit against the University of Louisville. Yoder was later reinstated into the program, and she graduated. She knew that she wasn't supposed to disclose any information related to the live birth that she saw. Considering she signed a consent form saying that she would not, she broke the rules anyway. The issue then becomes that she's going to be a nurse who patients can't trust. If you give your word to someone and then break your promise, why would anyone trust what you have to say? Nursing is built on trust. We have to build a rapport with our patients. If your patient doesn't trust you, then they don't feel safe. Safety is one of the biggest factors when it comes to nursing. The other moral issue at stake is the fact that even though she's a nursing student, she is aware of the implications that she will face if she reveals any patient information. Violating HIPAA is against the law and can have serious consequences, such as fines, loss of license, and even jail time. Maintaining confidentiality is something that is highly stressed in nursing school and in the workplace. For Yoder to claim that she wasn't aware that she was breaking any patient confidentiality rules is completely ridiculous. Not only did she break the patient confidentiality consent that she had signed with her school and the patient, she was also mocking the entire experience. Childbirth is a beautiful and natural thing. There is nothing to make fun of when it comes to bringing a life into the world. Yes, It's messy, and it's scary, and it's busy, but it's beautiful. A patient should never feel like they're the butt of the joke. This is another way that Yoder lost the trust of that patient. She clearly knew the rules of her nursing program and failed to follow them. She was turned in by another student, so the rules had been clearly stated within the program, therefore proving that Yoder either didn't pay attention in class or didn't care. If Yoder was already a registered nurse and this had happened, she would have gotten in a lot of trouble with the company that she works for and possibly even lost her job. The punishment to be dismissed from the nursing program was appropriate and should have been followed through. Unfortunately, anytime the word lawsuit comes up, companies get scared. The University of Louisville thought that by reinstating Yoder back into the nursing program, this would cause the least amount of damage to them. Hopefully, Yoder has learned something from this experience, but it is hard to say because she was ultimately given what she wanted. Nursing programs all over the country now have to have a social media policy that clearly states what will happen if students break any of the social media policy. I'm not sure if the University of Louisville had any policies in place, but they do now. According to the American Nurses Association Code of Ethics, Yoder has broken several. A nurse must have respect for human dignity, which is clear that she does not. By mocking the patient on social media, she risks making the patient feel bad about herself for having a child. She should have had a professional relationship with the patient, which she did not because she broke the patient's trust, which is so important to a professional relationship. Most importantly, a nurse is supposed to promote, advocate for, and strive to protect the health, safety, and rights of the patient, which include, but are not limited to, confidentiality and privacy. Yoder was not promoting either of these two important codes of ethics when she posted the birthing experience on social media. By posting this information on her blog, she broke the professional boundaries of a nurse. The birthing experience is a very private and intimate experience that should have never been exposed to anyone outside of the event that was happening. The last code of ethics that Yoder broke that will be discussed in this paper is the protection of participants in research. The patient signed a consent and was happy to have a student observe a very personal experience to her. When Yoder exposed information that she had seen during this experience, she was no longer protecting the patient's rights. A code of ethics is crucial when it comes to the nursing field. Without a proper code of ethics, there is room for error when it comes to what is acceptable to discuss when talking about a patient. If patients can't trust their healthcare team, then why should they see them? If we look at this case in the utilitarian approach, maybe Yoder was simply looking to please the followers of her blog. Bloggers often feel that if they have an active blog, then they need to provide their readers with more stories. They feel as though they owe something to their readers. If a utilitarian viewed this case, they would look at the amount of happiness brought to the situation. For instance, they may see that the only person that revealing this information caused any harm to was the patient, but it brought happiness to many of the readers of Yoder's blog. I tend to disagree with the utilitarian approach because it doesn't include everyone who is involved and their feelings on the matter. Yes, the readers of the blog probably enjoyed reading about the clinical experience, but at what expense? The patient trusted Yoder not to reveal any of her information, and Yoder broke that trust. If Yoder was the patient and someone revealed personal information about her, she would feel betrayed as well. If we consider deontology in this case, then we can easily see what is considered right and wrong about the case. The right thing to do for the safety and privacy of this patient and her health information was to obtain the consent, and the patient obtain the consent from the patient and have both parties sign the consent. By doing this, this ensures that the patient's information will be protected. Where the case went wrong is when Yoder disclosed personal information on social media. The only people who should have had access to this patient's information is Yoder, the patient, and her healthcare team. Yoder's teacher is also allowed information that can be discussed between student and teacher. By disclosing this information, Yoder broke some very important rules of the nursing field and should have been punished for her actions. As a nurse, it is crucial that my patients can trust me and that I have their best interests in mind. This includes their care, privacy, and confidentiality. If my patients knew that I disclosed some of their personal information to a website to gain more attention for myself, then they would not look at me with the same respect that they do. They cannot assume that someone on social media wouldn't know this patient. There are many instances that a healthcare provider will talk about a patient without exposing any identifying data, and there is someone who knows the patient or thinks they know the patient because the experience sounds like their loved one. We should assume that our patients do not want any of their personal information to be disclosed because it is against the law to disclose that information without the consent of the patient. Nurses aren't even allowed to tell family members any information without the consent from their patient, let alone strangers on social media. Yoder should have been dismissed from the program and not allowed to return. She shouldn't have been allowed to sit for the board exam and become a nurse because she broke a cardinal rule of nursing. She knew that she shouldn't have shared this information on social media, yet she did it anyway. She broke professional and ethical boundaries before she was even a nurse. Do you think that Yoder should have been reinstated into the program? If she is reinstated, should she be placed on a social media probation? When Yoder becomes a nurse, would you trust her as a patient? These are all very important details to consider when it comes to determining what is an appropriate punishment for Yoder. Some people may consider her actions as an honest mistake, but I see them as a blatant way for Yoder to get the attention she is wanting out of her social media account. If Yoder ever did become a nurse, I truly hope that she learned from this experience and took patient confidentiality and privacy more seriously.